Luna Blackwood had always believed that life was nothing more than a series of carefully orchestrated disappointments, each one perfectly timed to crush whatever small hopes she had managed to cultivate. At 28 years old, she possessed the kind of cynical wisdom that comes from too many broken promises and too many doors slammed in her face. Her small studio apartment in downtown Portland reflected this philosophy: sparse, functional, and devoid of any decoration that might suggest optimism about the future. The rain outside her window fell in the relentless, methodical way that only Pacific Northwest rain could manage, creating a steady rhythm against the glass that had become the soundtrack to her increasingly isolated existence. Luna sat cross-legged on her second-hand couch, surrounded by rejection letters from art galleries, freelance clients, and even the local coffee shops where she had hoped to display her paintings. Each letter contained the same polite but devastating message: "Thank you for your submission, but we have decided to pursue other opportunities at this time." Luna's artistic talent was undeniable, even to herself in her darkest moments. Her paintings possessed a haunting quality that seemed to capture emotions that most people couldn't even name, let alone express. Her use of color was intuitive and bold, creating landscapes and portraits that felt alive with hidden meaning and suppressed longing. However, talent without opportunity was like having a voice with no one willing to listen, and Luna had begun to wonder if she was destined to remain unheard forever. The morning that would change everything began like any other, with Luna reluctantly dragging herself out of bed to face another day of rejections and disappointments. She had exactly $43 in her checking account, enough to cover her bus fare to downtown, where she planned to make one last attempt at finding work. Any work that might keep her from being evicted at the end of the month. Her landlord, Mr. Chun, had been patient with her late rent payments, but his patience was wearing thin, and Luna couldn't blame him for expecting her to fulfill her basic obligations. As Luna gathered her portfolio and what remained of her dignity, she noticed something unusual on the small table by her front door. Tucked beneath her keys was a bus ticket that she had never seen before. Not just any bus ticket, but a Greyhound ticket for a cross-country journey from Portland, Oregon to Asheville, North Carolina, dated for departure that very afternoon. The ticket was made out to Luna Blackwood in neat handwriting that she didn't recognize, and it appeared to be completely legitimate, complete with confirmation numbers and official stamps. Luna's first instinct was to assume that the ticket was some kind of mistake, perhaps delivered to the wrong apartment by an incompetent postal worker or left behind by a previous tenant. She examined the ticket carefully, looking for any indication of who might have purchased it or why it had appeared in her possession. The departure time listed was 3:47 p.m., which gave her less than 6 hours to decide whether this mysterious ticket represented an opportunity or simply another cruel joke that life was playing on her. Asheville, North Carolina was a place that Luna had heard mentioned in passing conversations among other artists, always described in reverent tones as a haven for creative people, a mountain town where art was valued and artists could actually make a living pursuing their passions. She had never seriously considered moving there herself, partly because she couldn't afford to relocate, and partly because she had convinced herself that places like that were too good to be true, existing only in the fantasies of desperate artists who needed to believe that somewhere, somehow, their work would be appreciated. The more Luna examined the ticket, the more questions arose. Who knew her full name and current address well enough to have this delivered? Who would spend several $100s to send her across the country without explanation? Was this some kind of elaborate prank? Or was someone trying to help her in a way that preserved her pride by making the assistance appear accidental? The ticket bore no return address, no note of explanation, and no clues about the identity of her mysterious benefactor. Luna spent the morning pacing her small apartment, alternating between excitement and terror as she considered the implications of actually using the ticket. On one hand, she had nothing significant keeping her in Portland: no job, no romantic relationship, no close friendships that couldn't survive a geographical separation. Her artistic career had stagnated completely, and her financial situation was desperate enough that even a cross-country journey to an unknown destination seemed preferable to staying and watching her dreams die slowly in the Pacific Northwest rain. On the other hand, The ticket represented a leap into complete uncertainty that required more courage than Luna was sure she possessed. She would be traveling to a place where she knew no one, had no job prospects, and no guarantee that life would be any better than what she was leaving behind. The responsible, practical part of her mind insisted that accepting mysterious gifts from unknown sources was dangerous and foolish, while the desperate, dreaming part of her heart whispered that this might be the miracle she had been waiting for without realizing it. As the afternoon approached and the departure time drew closer, Luna found herself automatically packing a small suitcase with her most essential possessions, a few changes of clothes, her art supplies, her portfolio of paintings, and the few photographs she had of her late parents. She moved with the mechanical precision of someone who was afraid that thinking too carefully about her actions might cause her to lose her nerve entirely. Every few minutes, she would stop and stare at the bus ticket, as if it might disappear or reveal its secrets if she looked at it long enough. At 2:30 p.m., Luna made the decision that would alter the trajectory of her entire life. She grabbed her suitcase, her portfolio, and the mysterious ticket, and walked out of her apartment without looking back. The rain had stopped, and for the first time in months, thin shafts of sunlight were breaking through the clouds, creating an almost cinematic backdrop for what felt like the most important decision she had ever made. As she walked toward the bus station, Luna couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, though every time she turned around, she saw only ordinary pedestrians going about their daily routines. The Greyhound station was exactly as depressing as Luna had expected, fluorescent lighting that made everyone look slightly ill, plastic chairs designed by someone who had never actually sat in a chair, and the distinctive smell of disinfectant mixed with human exhaustion. Luna approached the ticket counter with a mixture of hope and dread, certain that the mysterious ticket would prove to be fake or expired, ending her adventure before it could begin. To her amazement, the ticket scanned perfectly, and the bored-looking attendant handed her a boarding pass without any questions or complications. As Luna sat in the waiting area, clutching her boarding pass and trying to process the reality of what was happening, she noticed a woman sitting across from her who seemed to be watching her with unusual interest. The woman appeared to be in her 60s, with silver hair pulled back in an elegant bun and kind eyes that seemed to sparkle with secret knowledge. When their eyes met, the older woman smiled warmly and approached Luna with the confident stride of someone who was accustomed to taking charge of situations. "Excuse me, dear," she said in a melodious voice, tinged with a slight southern accent, "but I couldn't help noticing that you're traveling to Asheville. It's such a wonderful place. I think you're going to love it there." There was something about the woman's tone and expression that suggested she knew more about Luna's journey than she was letting on. But before Luna could ask any questions, the boarding announcement echoed through the station. As Luna gathered her belongings and prepared to board the bus that would carry her away from everything familiar and toward an uncertain but potentially transformative future, she felt a mixture of terror and exhilaration that she had never experienced before. The mysterious ticket had already changed her life, simply by giving her permission to imagine that change was possible. Now, as she climbed aboard the Greyhound bus and found her assigned seat, Luna realized that she was about to discover whether the ticket represented merely an escape from her current circumstances or the beginning of something extraordinary that she had never dared to dream possible. The bus pulled away from the Portland station with a mechanical wheeze that seemed to echo Luna's own sense of nervous anticipation. As the familiar cityscape began to give way to the rolling hills and forests of Oregon, Luna pressed her face against the window and watched her old life disappear mile by mile. The other passengers seemed to be carrying their own stories of transition and uncertainty. An elderly man clutching a worn photograph, a young mother soothing a restless toddler, a teenager with a guitar case staring intently at the horizon as if he could see his future waiting somewhere in the distance. The silver-haired woman who had spoken to Luna at the station had taken a seat several rows ahead, and Luna found herself stealing glances at her throughout the first few hours of the journey. There was something elegant and mysterious about the woman that reminded Luna of the kind of characters she used to create in her paintings, figures who seemed to possess secret knowledge about the hidden connections that linked all human experiences together. Every so often, the woman would turn slightly and offer Luna a reassuring smile, as if she understood exactly what Luna was feeling and wanted her to know that everything would work out exactly as it was meant to. As the bus wound its way through the Columbia River Gorge, Luna retrieved her sketchpad and began drawing the landscape that rolled past her window. The familiar motion of pencil on paper helped calm her nerves while allowing her to process the magnitude of what she had done. Each sketch captured not just the external scenery, but also her internal landscape of hope, fear, and desperate determination to believe that she was traveling toward something better rather than simply running away from something difficult. A middle-aged man sitting across the aisle noticed Luna's drawings and struck up a conversation that would prove to be the first of many meaningful encounters during her cross-country journey. Jerome Washington was a jazz musician who had spent 30 years playing in clubs and recording studios in Seattle before deciding to relocate to New Orleans to reconnect with the roots of his musical passion. Like Luna, he was carrying dreams that had been deferred for too long and hopes that had been tested by too many disappointments. Jerome's story resonated deeply with Luna's own experience of artistic struggle and creative perseverance. He told her about the years he had spent playing wedding receptions and corporate events to pay his bills, all the while dreaming of the day when he could focus entirely on the music that truly moved his soul. His decision to move to New Orleans had been prompted by a similar leap of faith, a realization that staying safe and comfortable was slowly killing his artistic spirit, and that sometimes the only way to find what you're looking for is to be brave enough to go looking for it. As they talked through the afternoon and into the evening, Luna found herself opening up about her own artistic journey in ways that surprised her. She had become so accustomed to keeping her dreams private, protecting them from the skepticism and well-meaning advice of people who didn't understand the compulsive need to create, that she had almost forgotten how good it felt to talk with someone who truly understood the artist's dilemma. Jerome listened without judgment and offered encouragement without platitudes, creating a space where Luna could examine her fears and hopes with honesty and clarity. The first night on the bus was a study in uncomfortable sleeping positions and the strange intimacy that develops among travelers who are sharing a confined space for an extended period. Luna dozed fitfully, her dreams filled with images of mountain towns and art galleries, successful exhibitions, and financial security. Reconnection with family members she had never known existed, in romantic relationships that were built on mutual respect and shared creative passion. When she woke at dawn to see the sun rising over the Wyoming landscape, she felt as if she had been traveling not just through physical space, but through psychological terrain that was preparing her for whatever awaited her at her destination. The second day of the journey brought new passengers and new stories, each one adding another layer to Luna's understanding of the courage required to start over in a new place. A retired teacher named Dorothy was moving to Arizona to be closer to her grandchildren after years of living alone following her husband's death. A young veteran named Carlos was traveling to Texas to begin college on the GI Bill, determined to become an engineer despite having no family history of higher education. Each story reminded Luna that she was part of a larger community of people who had decided that their current circumstances didn't have to define their future possibilities. As the bus made its way through Colorado and into Kansas, Luna continued to sketch and paint, using her art supplies to document not just the changing landscape, but also the faces and gestures of her fellow travelers. The elderly man with the photograph turned out to be visiting his estranged son for the first time in 15 years. Carrying hopes for reconciliation and fears about rejection. The young mother was starting fresh in a new city after leaving an abusive relationship, her toddler representing both the reason she had found the courage to leave and the motivation she needed to build a better life. The teenager with the guitar case was named David, and he was traveling to Nashville with nothing but his musical talent and an unshakable belief that he was destined to write songs that would matter to people. Luna found his optimism both inspiring and heartbreaking, remembering her own younger self and the certainty she had once felt that talent alone would be enough to guarantee success. She wanted to protect him from the disappointments that might await him, while also encouraging him to hold onto the hope that made his dreams seem possible. On the third day, as they crossed into Missouri and began the gradual descent toward the American South, Luna noticed that the silver-haired woman from the Portland station had begun making her way back through the bus, stopping to chat with various passengers as if she were conducting some kind of informal survey. When she finally reached Luna's seat, she settled into the empty space beside her with the comfortable familiarity of an old friend. "I hope you don't mind the company, dear," the woman said, her southern accent more pronounced now that they were geographically closer to her apparent origins. "I'm Eleanor Whitmore, and I have a feeling we have more in common than you might expect." Eleanor's eyes sparkled with the same secret knowledge that Luna had noticed at the bus station, and something about her presence made Luna feel simultaneously curious and comforted. Eleanor explained that she was returning to Asheville after spending several months in Portland, where she had been visiting her niece and taking care of some unfinished family business. As they talked, Luna began to suspect that Eleanor knew more about the mysterious bus ticket than she was initially letting on. There were too many coincidences: Eleanor's presence on the same bus, her knowledge of Asheville's art scene, and most tellingly, her complete lack of surprise when Luna mentioned that she was an artist traveling to North Carolina without any concrete plans or connections. "Sometimes," Eleanor said with a knowing smile, "the universe conspires to put us exactly where we need to be, even when we can't see the bigger picture ourselves. Asheville has a way of calling to creative souls who are ready to discover what they're truly capable of achieving." Her words carried a weight and certainty that made Luna wonder if Eleanor might be speaking from personal experience, and whether the older woman's own story included its own moments of unexpected opportunity and transformative change. As the bus continued its eastward journey through Tennessee and into the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, Luna found herself feeling increasingly excited about what awaited her in Asheville. The landscape outside her window had transformed from the wide-open spaces of the western states to the intimate, rolling hills and dense forests of the southeast. Everything seemed greener and more alive, as if the earth itself was preparing to welcome her to a place where growth and creativity were not just possible but inevitable. Eleanor had shared stories about Asheville's vibrant arts community, its supportive network of galleries and studios, and the way the mountain environment seemed to inspire creativity in people who had never thought of themselves as artists. She spoke about local coffee shops where musicians gathered to share songs, outdoor markets where painters and sculptors displayed their work, and community events that celebrated creative expression in all its forms. For the first time in years, Luna allowed herself to imagine a life where her art was not just a private passion, but a way of connecting with other people who shared her commitment to creative authenticity. As they approached the final hours of their journey, Luna realized that the mysterious bus ticket had already changed her life in ways that went far beyond simply transporting her from one geographical location to another. The conversation she had shared with her fellow travelers had reminded her that she was not alone in her struggles or her dreams. The landscape she had witnessed through the bus window had expanded her visual vocabulary and given her new subjects to explore in her art. Most importantly, the simple act of accepting the ticket and taking the risk it represented had reawakened her sense of possibility and reminded her that sometimes the most important journey is the one that takes you away from who you used to be and toward who you might become. The Blue Ridge Mountains rose before them like a promise made manifest, their ancient peaks softened by morning mist and the kind of ethereal light that Luna had only ever seen in the paintings of the Hudson River School artists. As the Greyhound bus wound its way down the mountain roads toward Asheville, Luna pressed her face against the window with the wonder of a child seeing snow for the first time. The landscape seemed to pulse with creative energy, as if the mountains themselves were works of art that had been sculpted by some cosmic force with an eye for beauty and drama. Eleanor had been quietly observing Luna's reaction to their approaching destination, her knowing smile growing more pronounced with each mile that passed. "First time in the mountains, dear?" she asked, though something in her tone suggested that she already knew the answer. Luna nodded, unable to articulate the complex emotions that were rising within her as the reality of her situation began to sink in. In less than an hour, she would be standing in a completely unfamiliar place with no plan, no connections, and no safety net beyond her own determination and the mysterious circumstances that had brought her there. The bus station in Asheville was a modest affair compared to the urban terminals Luna had experienced in larger cities, but it possessed a warmth and character that immediately set it apart. Local artwork adorned the walls, and the waiting area was filled with the kind of eclectic furniture that suggested someone had prioritized comfort and personality over institutional efficiency. Even the other passengers waiting for buses seemed different here. More relaxed, more colorful, more willing to make eye contact and engage in casual conversation with strangers. As Luna gathered her belongings and prepared to disembark, Eleanor placed a gentle hand on her arm. "Before you go, dear, I want you to have this," she said, pressing a small piece of paper into Luna's hand. "It's the address of a friend of mine who runs a gallery downtown. Tell her Eleanor sent you, and that you're the artist I mentioned. She's expecting you." Before Luna could ask any of the dozen questions that immediately sprang to mind, Eleanor had melted into the crowd of departing passengers, leaving Luna standing on the sidewalk with her suitcase, her portfolio, and a growing certainty that nothing about her journey had been as random as it had initially appeared. The address Eleanor had given her was for a gallery called Mountain Light Studio, located in the heart of Asheville's Arts District. Luna decided to walk, both to save money and to get a feel for the city that might become her new home. The streets were alive with a creative energy that she could feel in the very air she breathed. Street musicians played on corners, their guitar cases open for donations, and their faces bright with the joy of sharing their art with anyone willing to listen. Murals covered the sides of buildings, transforming ordinary brick walls into canvases that told stories about the community's history, values, and dreams. The shop windows Luna passed displayed everything from handcrafted jewelry to pottery to textile art, each piece bearing the unmistakable mark of individual creativity and artisanal skill. Coffee shops advertised open mic nights and art shows. Bookstores promoted poetry readings and writing workshops, and restaurants featured menus that emphasized local ingredients and creative culinary expression. This was clearly a place where art was not considered a luxury or hobby, but an integral part of daily life and community identity. Mountain Light Studio was housed in a converted Victorian home that had been painted in warm, welcoming colors and surrounded by gardens that seemed to have been designed by someone with an eye for both beauty and whimsy. Wind chimes made from recycled materials hung from the porch ceiling, creating gentle music as the mountain breeze moved through them. A hand-painted sign by the front door proclaimed, "All creative souls welcome," in flowing script that made Luna smile despite her nervousness about the encounter that awaited her inside. The woman who greeted Luna at the gallery door was perhaps 40 years old, with prematurely gray hair that she wore in loose waves and paint-stained fingers that immediately identified her as a working artist. Her name was Sarah Chun, and she possessed the kind of warm, direct manner that put Luna immediately at ease. "You must be Luna," Sarah said with a smile that seemed to encompass both welcome and recognition. "Eleanor called to let me know you were coming. She said you were an artist with exceptional talent and impeccable timing." Sarah led Luna through the gallery space, which was filled with work by local and regional artists representing a stunning variety of styles, subjects, and media. There were landscapes that captured the mystical quality of the Blue Ridge Mountains, portraits that seemed to peer directly into the souls of their subjects, abstract pieces that played with color and form in ways that challenged conventional expectations, and mixed media works that incorporated found objects and unconventional materials to create entirely new forms of artistic expression. Eleanor mentioned that you were looking for both exhibition opportunities and a place to live and work. Sarah continued as they walked through the gallery. "As it happens, I have a studio apartment above the gallery that's been empty for several months. The previous tenant was an artist who decided to relocate to Santa Fe, and I've been looking for the right person to take over the space. It's not luxurious, but it has good natural light, plenty of space for creating, and the rent is reasonable for someone who's willing to help out with gallery operations and community events." Luna felt as if she were living in a dream that was too perfect to be real. The apartment Sarah showed her was exactly what she would have designed for herself if she had possessed unlimited resources and the ability to create her ideal living and working space. Large windows faced north, providing the consistent, indirect light that artists prized for color accuracy. Built-in shelving offered storage for art supplies and works in progress. A small kitchenette and bathroom occupied one corner, leaving the majority of the space available for creating and displaying artwork. "There's one condition," Sarah said as Luna stood in the center of the studio, trying to process the magnitude of what was being offered to her. "Eleanor has requested that you participate in our upcoming group exhibition, celebrating new voices in contemporary mountain art. The show opens in 6 weeks, and we'll need at least 5 pieces from you." Eleanor seemed quite confident that you would be ready to share your work with our community by then. The mention of Eleanor's continued involvement in Luna's situation confirmed what Luna had begun to suspect, that her mysterious benefactor was orchestrating far more than a simple bus ticket and chance encounter. However, instead of feeling manipulated or concerned about Eleanor's motives, Luna found herself feeling grateful for the obvious care and thought that had gone into creating these opportunities. Someone believed in her talent and potential strongly enough to invest time, money, and social connections in helping her succeed. Luna accepted Sarah's offer immediately, and within hours she had moved her few belongings into the studio apartment and begun the process of transforming the space into her new home and creative sanctuary. As she unpacked her art supplies and arranged her easel near the north-facing window, she felt a sense of rightness and possibility that she hadn't experienced in years. The mysterious bus ticket had not only transported her to a new geographical location, but had also delivered her to a community and environment where her artistic identity could flourish without apology or compromise. That evening, as Luna sat in her new studio and watched the sun set behind the Blue Ridge Mountains, she began work on her first painting inspired by her new surroundings. The piece seemed to paint itself, flowing from her brushes, with an ease and confidence that reminded her why she had become an artist in the first place. The colors were richer and more vibrant than anything she had created in Portland, as if the mountain air and creative community had already begun to influence her artistic vision in profound ways. As she painted, Luna found herself thinking about Eleanor and the chain of events that had brought her to this moment. She still didn't understand who Eleanor was or why she had chosen to help a struggling artist whom she had never met. But she was beginning to understand that some gifts are meant to be accepted with gratitude rather than analyzed with suspicion. The bus ticket had been more than transportation. It had been an invitation to step into a version of herself that she had been afraid to believe was possible. Over the following days, Luna threw herself into both creating new work for the upcoming exhibition and exploring her new community. She discovered coffee shops where local artists gathered to share ideas and offer mutual support, hiking trails that provided endless inspiration for landscape paintings, and community events that celebrated creativity in all its forms. For the first time in her adult life, Luna felt as if she belonged somewhere, as if she had found a place and people who understood and valued what she had to offer the world. The address Eleanor had given her was for a gallery called Mountain Light Studio, located in the heart of Asheville's Arts District. Luna decided to walk, both to save money and to get a feel for the city that might become her new home. The streets were alive with a creative energy that she could feel in the very air she breathed. Street musicians played on corners, their guitar cases open for donations, and their faces bright with the joy of sharing their art with anyone willing to listen. Murals covered the sides of buildings, transforming ordinary brick walls into canvases that told stories about the community's history, values, and dreams. The shop windows Luna passed displayed everything from handcrafted jewelry to pottery to textile art, each piece bearing the unmistakable mark of individual creativity and artisanal skill. Coffee shops advertised open mic nights and art shows. Bookstores promoted poetry readings and writing workshops, and restaurants featured menus that emphasized local ingredients and creative culinary expression. This was clearly a place where art was not considered a luxury or hobby, but an integral part of daily life and community identity. Mountain Light Studio was housed in a converted Victorian home that had been painted in warm, welcoming colors and surrounded by gardens that seemed to have been designed by someone with an eye for both beauty and whimsy. Wind chimes made from recycled materials hung from the porch ceiling, creating gentle music as the mountain breeze moved through them. A hand-painted sign by the front door proclaimed, "All creative souls welcome," in flowing script that made Luna smile despite her nervousness about the encounter that awaited her inside. The woman who greeted Luna at the gallery door was perhaps 40 years old, with prematurely gray hair that she wore in loose waves and paint-stained fingers that immediately identified her as a working artist. Her name was Sarah Chun, and she possessed the kind of warm, direct manner that put Luna immediately at ease. "You must be Luna," Sarah said with a smile that seemed to encompass both welcome and recognition. "Eleanor called to let me know you were coming. She said you were an artist with exceptional talent and impeccable timing." Sarah led Luna through the gallery space, which was filled with work by local and regional artists representing a stunning variety of styles, subjects, and media. There were landscapes that captured the mystical quality of the Blue Ridge Mountains, portraits that seemed to peer directly into the souls of their subjects, abstract pieces that played with color and form in ways that challenged conventional expectations, and mixed media works that incorporated found objects and unconventional materials to create entirely new forms of artistic expression. Eleanor mentioned that you were looking for both exhibition opportunities and a place to live and work, Sarah continued as they walked through the gallery. "As it happens, I have a studio apartment above the gallery that's been empty for several months. The previous tenant was an artist who decided to relocate to Santa Fe, and I've been looking for the right person to take over the space. It's not luxurious, but it has good natural light, plenty of space for creating, and the rent is reasonable for someone who's willing to help out with gallery operations and community events." Luna felt as if she were living in a dream that was too perfect to be real. The apartment Sarah showed her was exactly what she would have designed for herself if she had possessed unlimited resources and the ability to create her ideal living and working space. Large windows faced north, providing the consistent, indirect light that artists prized for color accuracy. Built-in shelving offered storage for art supplies and works in progress. A small kitchenette and bathroom occupied one corner, leaving the majority of the space available for creating and displaying artwork. "There's one condition," Sarah said as Luna stood in the center of the studio, trying to process the magnitude of what was being offered to her. "Eleanor has requested that you participate in our upcoming group exhibition, celebrating new voices in contemporary mountain art. The show opens in 6 weeks, and we'll need at least 5 pieces from you. Eleanor seemed quite confident that you would be ready to share your work with our community by then." The mention of Eleanor's continued involvement in Luna's situation confirmed what Luna had begun to suspect, that her mysterious benefactor was orchestrating far more than a simple bus ticket and chance encounter. However, instead of feeling manipulated or concerned about Eleanor's motives, Luna found herself feeling grateful for the obvious care and thought that had gone into creating these opportunities. Someone believed in her talent and potential strongly enough to invest time, money, and social connections in helping her succeed. Luna accepted Sarah's offer immediately, and within hours she had moved her few belongings into the studio apartment and begun the process of transforming the space into her new home and creative sanctuary. As she unpacked her art supplies and arranged her easel near the north-facing window, she felt a sense of rightness and possibility that she hadn't experienced in years. The mysterious bus ticket had not only transported her to a new geographical location, but had also delivered her to a community and environment where her artistic identity could flourish without apology or compromise. That evening, as Luna sat in her new studio and watched the sun set behind the Blue Ridge Mountains, she began work on her first painting inspired by her new surroundings. The piece seemed to paint itself, flowing from her brushes, with an ease and confidence that reminded her why she had become an artist in the first place. The colors were richer and more vibrant than anything she had created in Portland, as if the mountain air and creative community had already begun to influence her artistic vision in profound ways. As she painted, Luna found herself thinking about Eleanor and the chain of events that had brought her to this moment. She still didn't understand who Eleanor was or why she had chosen to help a struggling artist whom she had never met. But she was beginning to understand that some gifts are meant to be accepted with gratitude rather than analyzed with suspicion. The bus ticket had been more than transportation. It had been an invitation to step into a version of herself that she had been afraid to believe was possible. Over the following days, Luna threw herself into both creating new work for the upcoming exhibition and exploring her new community. She discovered coffee shops where local artists gathered to share ideas and offer mutual support, hiking trails that provided endless inspiration for landscape paintings, and community events that celebrated creativity in all its forms. For the first time in her adult life, Luna felt as if she belonged somewhere, as if she had found a place and people who understood and valued what she had to offer the world. I chose Asheville because I knew the community would appreciate your work and provide the support you needed to develop your full potential as an artist, Eleanor said. But I also chose it because I have connections here that could help launch your career in ways that wouldn't be possible in a larger, more competitive market. Sarah Chun is one of the most respected gallery owners in the Southeast, and her endorsement carries significant weight with collectors and critics throughout the region. The revelation that Eleanor had been James Blackwood's first wife transformed Luna's understanding of everything that had happened since she found the mysterious bus ticket. Eleanor wasn't simply a generous stranger who had decided to help a struggling artist. She was family, connected to Luna through ties of affection and shared history that went back decades. The bus ticket represented not random kindness, but deliberate investment in continuing James's artistic legacy through his daughter. "There's something else you should know," Eleanor said, reaching into her purse and withdrawing a small wrapped package. "James left some things with me when we divorced, asking me to hold on to them until the right time came to pass them on. I think that time is now." The package contained a collection of James's sketchbooks, filled with drawings and notes that revealed the development of his artistic vision over many years. There were also several photographs of James at work in various studios, and a letter addressed to Luna that he had written shortly before his death. Luna opened the letter with trembling hands, discovering words of love, encouragement, and artistic advice from a father she had barely remembered. James had written about the importance of staying true to one's artistic vision despite external pressures, the value of connecting with other artists who shared similar commitments to creative authenticity, and his hope that Luna would someday find the courage to pursue her artistic dreams without compromise. The letter concluded with his prediction that Luna would someday create work that surpassed anything he had ever achieved, and his confidence that she possessed the talent and determination necessary to succeed as a professional artist. As Luna absorbed the magnitude of what Eleanor had revealed, she began to understand that the bus ticket had represented far more than transportation to a new city or even introduction to a supportive artistic community. It had been an invitation to claim her artistic inheritance, to step into the legacy that James Blackwood had intended for her, and to accept the family connections that she had never known existed. Eleanor had not simply helped a stranger. She had welcomed home a stepdaughter whose talent and potential she had been watching and nurturing from afar for many years. The exhibition, opening the following evening, took on new meaning in light of Eleanor's revelations. As Luna stood before her paintings, surrounded by appreciative viewers who praised her work and expressed interest in purchasing pieces, she felt connected not only to her new community, but also to her artistic heritage in ways that gave her confidence and grounding she had never experienced before. Eleanor stood nearby, introducing Luna to collectors and critics with the pride of someone presenting a beloved family member whose success reflected well on everyone connected to her. The evening was a triumph that exceeded Luna's most optimistic expectations. All 5 of her paintings sold to collectors who expressed interest in seeing more of her work, and several people requested information about commissioning custom pieces. Sarah Chen announced that she wanted to schedule a solo exhibition featuring Luna's work for the following spring, and a reporter from the Regional Arts magazine asked to interview Luna about her artistic development and her connection to James Blackwood's legacy. As the evening wound down and the last guest departed, Luna stood with Eleanor in the gallery space that had become the launching pad for her new career. The mysterious bus ticket that had seemed like such a random occurrence just a few weeks earlier had revealed itself to be part of a carefully orchestrated plan to help Luna discover not only her artistic potential, but also her family heritage and the connections that would support her throughout her career. "Thank you," Luna said to Eleanor, knowing that the words were inadequate to express the gratitude she felt for everything Eleanor had done to make this transformation possible. "You gave me more than I ever dreamed was possible." Eleanor smiled with the satisfaction of someone who had successfully completed a long-cherished mission. "My dear Luna, you gave yourself everything you needed. I simply provided the bus ticket. The courage to use it, the talent to create these beautiful works, and the grace to embrace this new life. All of that came from within you. 6 months after her arrival in Asheville, Luna Blackwood stood in her expanded studio space, now occupying the entire second floor of Mountain Light Studio. Her solo exhibition had been such a success that Sarah had offered her a permanent residency, complete with representation and a commitment to promote her work throughout the Southeast. The transformation from struggling artist to established professional seemed almost too dramatic to believe, yet the evidence surrounded her in the form of canvases, commission contracts, and a waiting list of collectors eager to acquire her latest works. The mountains had become Luna's artistic signature, but not in the literal way she had initially expected. Her paintings had evolved to use the landscape as a metaphor for internal transformation, creating works that spoke to viewers about their own journeys of growth and self-discovery. Critics had begun comparing her work to the great American landscape painters, while noting the contemporary psychological depth that made her paintings relevant to modern audiences seeking meaning and beauty in an increasingly complex world. Eleanor had become a regular presence in Luna's life, visiting the studio weekly to check on her progress and offer the kind of guidance and support that only someone with decades of experience in the art world could provide. Their relationship had evolved from benefactor and recipient to something resembling the family bond that Eleanor had always hoped to maintain with James Blackwood's daughter. Luna had learned to appreciate Eleanor's wisdom and connections while maintaining her independence and artistic integrity. The success of Luna's career had allowed her to begin giving back to the community that had welcomed her so warmly. She had started teaching painting workshops for local residents, particularly focusing on working with people who had never considered themselves artists but who possessed creative potential that simply needed encouragement and guidance. These workshops had become some of the most fulfilling aspects of her new life, reminding her daily of the transformative power of art and community support. One particularly meaningful workshop participant was David Rodriguez, the teenager with the guitar case, whom Luna had met on the bus journey from Portland. David had eventually made his way to Nashville as planned, but his musical dreams had proven more challenging to realize than he had anticipated. After months of rejection and financial struggle, he had remembered Luna's kindness and artistic success, and had contacted her through the gallery to ask for advice about persevering in creative pursuits. Luna had invited David to visit Asheville and had arranged for him to stay in a small apartment above one of the local music venues, while he developed his songwriting skills and connected with the mountain region's thriving folk and bluegrass scene. His musical style proved to be perfectly suited to the authentic, storytelling traditions that were valued in the Appalachian music community, and within weeks he had found both paying gigs and collaborative relationships with established musicians who appreciated his talent and dedication. "You saved my artistic life twice," David told Luna during one of his visits to her studio. "First on the bus when you reminded me that creative struggles are part of every artist's journey, and then again when you showed me that success is possible if you're willing to be patient and work hard. I don't know if I would have had the courage to keep going without your example." Luna had also reconnected with Jerome Washington, the jazz musician she had met during her bus journey. Jerome had successfully relocated to New Orleans and had found the musical community and creative fulfillment he had been seeking, but he had maintained contact with Luna throughout their parallel journeys of artistic renewal. They had begun collaborating on interdisciplinary projects that combined Luna's visual art with Jerome's musical compositions, creating multimedia experiences that had attracted attention from festivals and galleries throughout the Southeast. The correspondence between Luna and her fellow bus travelers had revealed that many of them had experienced their own forms of transformation and success in their new locations. Dorothy, the retired teacher, had become involved in educational programs for gifted children in Arizona and had discovered a new sense of purpose in her retirement years. Carlos, the young veteran, was excelling in his engineering studies and had been offered internships with several major companies. Each success story reinforced Luna's growing belief that the bus journey had been part of something larger than individual coincidence, a convergence of people who were all ready for positive change and brave enough to pursue it. The mystery of Eleanor's full identity had gradually revealed itself through their deepening relationship, and Luna's growing understanding of the art world connections that had made her rapid success possible. Eleanor Whitmore was not simply James Blackwood's ex-wife, but prominent art collector and patron who had spent decades supporting emerging artists throughout the American South. Her endorsement and introduction had opened doors that would have remained closed to Luna for years, if not indefinitely. "I've spent my life investing in artistic talent that I believe deserved recognition," Eleanor explained during one of their weekly studio visits. "Some of those investments have paid off in terms of critical acclaim and commercial success, while others have simply enriched the lives of the artists themselves and the communities where they work. In your case, I had the additional motivation of honoring James's memory and ensuring that his artistic legacy continued through his daughter." Eleanor had also revealed that she had been quietly following the careers of several other children of artists she had known over the years, providing anonymous support and opportunities when circumstances seemed appropriate. Luna's case had been special not only because of Eleanor's connection to James, but also because Luna's talent and dedication had convinced Eleanor that significant investment was justified and likely to produce meaningful results. "The bus ticket was actually the smallest part of what I was prepared to do to help you succeed," Eleanor admitted with a smile. "I had contingency plans that included scholarships, studio rentals, introductions to collectors, and even financial support if necessary. But you've exceeded all my expectations and made most of those backup plans unnecessary. You've built your own success through talent, hard work, and genuine connection with your audience." Luna's relationship with her mother had also transformed as a result of her artistic success and her discoveries about James Blackwood's history. Maria Rodriguez had always been supportive of Luna's artistic pursuits, but had also worried about her daughter's financial security and the practical challenges of pursuing a creative career. Seeing Luna's professional success and emotional fulfillment had allowed Maria to relax and take pride in the choices that had once seemed risky and impractical. "I always knew you had your father's talent," Maria told Luna during a visit to Asheville that coincided with Luna's second solo exhibition. "What I didn't know was whether you would find the right opportunities to develop that talent into a sustainable career. Eleanor's help gave you the chance you needed, but everything you've accomplished since then has been your own achievement." The second solo exhibition had been even more successful than the first, with several paintings selling to museums and private collectors from across the country. Art critics had begun identifying Luna as one of the most promising young artists working in the contemporary landscape tradition, and her work had been accepted for inclusion in several prestigious group exhibitions in major cities. The trajectory of her career suggested that she was well on her way to achieving the kind of recognition and financial success that had eluded her father during his lifetime. As Luna reflected on the year since she had found the mysterious bus ticket in her Portland apartment, she marveled at the completeness of the transformation that had occurred in every aspect of her life. She had gained not only professional success and financial security, but also a sense of belonging, family connections she had never known existed, and friendships with other artists who shared her commitment to creative authenticity and community building. The bus ticket had been more than transportation. It had been an invitation to step into the life she was meant to live, surrounded by people who understood and valued her contributions to the world. Eleanor's carefully orchestrated intervention had given Luna permission to believe in herself and her potential, while the supportive community in Asheville had provided the environment where that potential could flourish without compromise. Standing in her studio as the sun set behind the Blue Ridge Mountains, Luna began work on a new painting that would capture not the external landscape, but the internal transformation that had brought her to this moment of fulfillment and gratitude. The mysterious bus ticket had changed her life, not through magic or luck, but by connecting her with the family, community, and opportunities that had been waiting for her to become brave enough to claim them. The painting would be titled The Journey Home, and it would tell the story of a woman who had traveled thousands of miles to discover that home was not a place on a map, but condition of the heart that emerged when talent, opportunity, and courage converged in perfect timing. The bus ticket had been the catalyst, but Luna herself had been the artist of her own transformation, creating a masterpiece of personal and professional fulfillment that would inspire others to take their own journeys toward the lives they were meant to live. 2 years after her arrival in Asheville, Luna Blackwood had become one of the region's most celebrated artists, but more importantly, she had become someone who understood the power of providing opportunities for others to discover their own potential. Working with Eleanor, she had established the James Blackwood Foundation, which provided travel grants and artistic support for emerging artists who needed the same kind of intervention that had transformed her own life. The foundation's first recipient was a young sculptor from Detroit who received a bus ticket to Santa Fe, along with studio space and mentorship from established artists in the area. The second recipient was a photographer from rural Mississippi who was given the opportunity to relocate to Portland, where his documentary work about Southern culture could reach new audiences and gain critical recognition. Each bus ticket the foundation provided carried the same potential for transformation that Luna's ticket had contained, along with the understanding that sometimes the greatest gift you can give another person is the courage to believe that change is possible. Luna had learned that the mysterious ticket had changed her life, not because it was magic, but because it represented someone's belief in her potential and their willingness to invest in her success. The cycle of giving and receiving had come full circle, and Luna knew that somewhere, another struggling artist was about to discover a bus ticket that would change everything, just as hers had done on that rainy morning in Portland that now seemed like a lifetime ago.